Today for Wildstorm Wednesday, we're going to showcase, and yes, I would like you to spend money on this, Wildstorm Archives Genesis, the #1 collection. Wildstorm Archives. We're going to profile how a company went from zero to fully fledged superhero universe with a level of artistry that competed with everyone past and present. This is significant. These are the types of episodes I love bringing to you guys. Let's go. AKAPADers, welcome back to the channel. Peter A. DeLuca here, and this is Wildstorm Wednesday. If you haven't seen the thumbnail for this video or read the title, it's Wildstorm Wednesday. We're going into this. Genesis, Wildstorm Productions Archives. This baby, it's nice. It's got a little bit of thickness to it. Black and white. And reveals something very special. And yes, we profiled it. I might profiled this 2 other times through social media. I think the first time was a Twitter live stream. Why is this book important? Why can't I wait to show it off? Because we really see, when we look at black and white comic book artwork, printed in this manner, printed in this fashion. We're not doing with high gloss, black and white artwork. We're doing newsprint, black and white. Jim Lee went from working for Marvel, becoming the angel of Marvel Comics, becoming the guy. He was the guy. When he leaves, and this is post X-Men #1, the highest selling comic book of all time, he went from zero comic book production of his own. And I'm talking penciling, creating, writing, all the way through the executive staff and everything in between. The rate that Wildstorm Productions went from not knowing anything to producing what I'm about to show you, and how clear it is because it's in black and white. It's high importance, and it reveals why we pay attention to this era of Wildstorm Productions. Now later, we all know Wildstorm Productions gets sold to DC. We all know Jim Lee was in position to take over Marvel comic books at one time and move all of the offices to the West Coast, to California. That didn't happen. He effectively got cock-blocked. But the idea that we go from Wildcats #1, nothing but inexperience, by the way, to this. This is absolutely extraordinary, and there's no one close in American comic books that really went from zero to a fully fledged superhero universe in the level of artistry that went one-to-one with the big two and exceeded it, went over the top, climbed that mountain more so than Marvel and DC. These guys were not only the leader of American art for American comics, they were also the leader of the attitude of the comic book industry, something we can all learn from today. Let's hit that drawing table. And there she is. What was the retail for Wildstorm Archives Genesis #1 collection? The retail, I don't even know. Right. Oh, well, here's a sticker for $6. How much? Let's see. Like, what was the original price? We're revealing this as close to real time as possible, AKAPADers. I can't get this off. I see maybe Canadian 15. We're almost there to the US. $10 AKAPADers, $10 US. Look at the newsprint though. Look at the newsprint. Everything today should be in newsprint. Every single reproduction should be in newsprint. We shouldn't have high gloss reproductions. Let's just go over Jim Lee's Wildcats Covert Action Teams #1 from the fantastic year of 1992 with the help of Malibu Comics. The crazy thing is that, look, Wildcats originally was supposed to be a 3-issue miniseries. We know it went 4. That 4th issue has Rob Liefeld's Young Blood. We flip through this. We can kind of say, right, the coloring, not quite there. Wildstorm later adapted and created like the coloring house of the comic book industry, later to be overtaken by Top Cow Productions. But this, for like a first time outing, right? Like it's pretty effing good, right? And we get a lot of plot in this. We introduce a dozen characters, like a lot of characters. And we end with like a pretty cool like cliffhanger. Z-Lot, you know, like the babe from the cover. We want to see more of her. Well, she shows up at the end, double page spread with some nice movies. But then, like, you know, we end with this explosion and VP Dan Quayle being manipulated by the bad guy, by Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. So a lot of people bought this, and they, you know, it wasn't Spawn. It went to Saturday morning cartoons. Wildcats just never had that cool factor. They really didn't, until Travis Charest came on to illustrate them. And then Alan Moore just solidified. And then the real work was Joe Casey. Joe Casey's the one that made Wildcats non-Wildcats. What else do we get? What do we get from a growing company? The black and white artwork is telling. And in this edition, we have Backlash, DV8, all issue ones, Deathblow, Gen 13, Grifter, Stormwatch, Union, Wetworks, Wildcats. We have a ton of pinups and covers. And we get a lot of the newest talent, like Brett Booth here, winner of the Wildstorm Productions talent contest. So we get new, but then we get like veterans that come in. We immediately see the line work, the detail. Look, the Kirby crackle. And a lot of you might look at this and you might just say, well, they're trying to make Backlash into Spider-Man here. They're just drawing girls. They're drawing fights. There's no backgrounds, which is weird because here we can tell we're in a hospital, and here we can tell we're out of the hospital, right? And we take this out of context a lot. Brett Booth, during this time, he's new to comics. This is like some of his like first true efforts in drawing comics. He's still drawing comics to this day. We could deviate Herberto Ramos, right, and Warren Ellis. And we get some veterans here. Now, Ramos was newer to the industry, but he had chops. And Ramos had a pedigree. And we're like, wow, you know, like we're a couple years in. Gen 13 successful. DV8 is the counter to Gen 13. But we get, I don't know, backgrounds, vehicles, great characters. We get Deathblow, Jim Lee's true experimental piece. Deathblow later gets rolled into Wildstorm proper, becomes basically the hero of Fire from Heaven, the company-wide crossover that pretty much ends the Wildstorm era that you see in these books. So Jim Lee's in for a couple of issues, but he's doing his Frank Miller impression. So people will say, you know, like early Image sucks. Early Image has no backgrounds. There's no backgrounds in early Image. And there's no cars. So no cars. We get Gen 13. J. Scott Campbell, another talent acquisition. He is now living in the studio. He's being taught by the best of the best. Jim Lee is working hand to hand with J. Scott Campbell. J. Scott Campbell takes, and we want to say, I know, I get other people are involved, but he legit takes, look at that hand. He takes Gen 13 to a level that no one thought was possible. He really takes this book to the stratosphere. So much so, the goodwill that he had while he was making this book carries over to his cover work today. But we really see, again, the detail, the artistry when it's black and white, and you don't need high gloss paper. All of the line work, all the cross hatching is here. Some like incredible stuff here. A lot of people complain that you have to turn these books sideways too. But look at, for example, like look at the inking for Grunge's leg hair here. Right? Like that's significant. Nice Kirby crackle there. We get Grifter, Ryan Benjamin. Ryan Benjamin at this time he's one of the unsung heroes. He brings a consistency, period. And he draws Grifter, like on model, on cue. A lot of these shots you would think would be Jim Lee, especially this one here. He's drawing vehicles. Again, this feels like a Jim Lee comic. Now, we're all working in Jim Lee's studio, but everyone's working together, they're collaborating, and they become highly productive. Wildcats launches with Stormwatch. This might be my favorite one here. The black and white Scott Clark. I mean, look at that. It's really there. I think this reads so much better black and white than the color version. I think the color takes you out. We're drawing vehicles. Remember, they said early image, no backgrounds. It sounds like we know the setting of these characters. It sounds like we can tell that battalion here is waking up in bed and he's living in a high rise. Sounds like we know that. But the cross hatching though, right? But Scott Clark always drew fantastic hair. Like his hair is maybe the best of the era. Yeah, and we get like some panels here look quick, but you have to understand, like the rate of panels that look off, it's no different than what Marvel and DC were doing at the time. Maybe you want to take my word for it. Hey, look at this background. Look at this background. Look at this George Perez looking background. That's crazy. Yeah, so we get Stormwatch here, and this plot point that wraps up issue 1 with his brother Malcolm, it carries over for years. Right here. Union, Mark Teixeira. Mark Teixeira goes all the way back to the Masters of the Universe comics that were included with the action figures. Jonah Hex is where I first discovered Mark Teixeira. Some of you guys might know him from his Sabretooth miniseries. But Teixeira here had a whole life, whole background. He later does some fantastic vampire roller work with Harris. And we see a consummate active storyteller here. You know, it's a storyteller when we kind of see like a philosophy of the paneling, where here he goes long, right? A lot of the panels are long because he knows what he needs to add to each panel, and he also has an eye for symmetry. Always a good sign if you guys are out there and you need some of those hints to identify a good storyteller. A repeating of paneling is one of those keys. But yeah, again, no cars for early image, no backgrounds. But here he's facing off against Battalion and Stormwatch. Union never quite like finds his footing, but inside of the Wildstorm universe, he's a little bit tragic, but look at that detail. Look at that shading. And he's somewhat overshadowed later by Mr. Majestic that premieres in Wildcats. It's either like for the type of character that Union is, you have him or you have Mr. Majestic. And Mr. Majestic kind of became the creator favorite, we'll say. Wetworks, the long-delayed Wetworks. We all know Wells Portacio can draw anything. He just makes everything look cool. Incredible shadows. Maybe the best shadow artist, or I call it modeling, when someone can shadow very well. Because you're like wrapping the forms. Maybe the best of the time. Wetworks #1 never gets enough credit. It really does. This issue was highly anticipated because it was delayed, and there's solid reasons for the delay. But look at his tech. But Wetworks goes on. It's a solid run, solid 3 years. Vampire, Werewolf War, Wetworks is in the middle. Here here's Travis Charest. But this is Wetworks Wildcats #1. It's great to see this as a black and white. And if we really want to identify kind of like how coloring, I don't know, like, does coloring, like, look at this panel right here. Like, does coloring mess up a comic? I don't know. Look, pink background. Because you know why? When you're drawing with black and white, you really just have 3 colors. You have black, white, and gray. Okay? When you color, like, you have to add, this needs a background. So it's like you pick a burgundy. You pick a burgundy background. I don't know. I think coloring subtracts impact a lot of times. But again, Jim Lee, like, you wouldn't know that this was not a Marvel comic at the time. Some of this is just insane. Jim Lee still has his chops, rocking and rolling today. And that's the wild thing, right? So that's interesting. So I'm just noticing that. So they turn Zealot's reveal, right? She kills the guy, she throws one of her blades, whacks him right in the head, right through the head, actually. But then the revelation is different. And you kind of want to say this was the intent because the border, right? Like, if this was a true double page splash, this would be, they call that full bleed when we bleed it to here. And we kind of see this is a double border, and even the blade doesn't stretch to full bleed. I never realized that. And then this was a backup for, like, maybe like a Homage Studios, one of their collected editions. And I always like this because, like, you can even tell with this. Like, it just looks like Jim Lee drew this with felt tip markers and, like, Sharpies. And then we have, this is from the Homage Studios one-shot, where this is like Jay Scott, and it's like one of his story ideas. And it's just a bunch of crazy characters. And we see a lot of Danger Girl in this. Art Adams. Just like the universe. Alright, like, this is how quickly the Wildstorm universe expanded. But really, really good stuff, guys. I just, if you spend your money on things, spend your money on stuff like this. And check out the Iron Man Eraser. Pike says, have a good night.